500 रुपए और 1000 रुपए के करेंसी नोट लीगल टेंडर नहीं रहेंगे।
Of the currency demonetized.
People standing under the scorching sun right in front of a bank.
They've lined up from the morning, but they've been...
1.3 billion citizens wait as India gets remonetized. But the lack of a common, divisible medium of exchange pushed human society to look beyond barter.
The problem with barter is that we might not have the double coincidence of wants, so that if you want to buy something from me and I cannot offer you something that you need in return, then the exchange does not go through.
The flaws in the barter system create a need for currency. Currency is a physical form of money that allows the hassle-free trade of goods and services. As markets and trade grew, currency evolved in the form of banknotes and coins. These were issued by ruling monarchs and dynasties. As nation-states developed, money came to be controlled by a centralized agency. Economies evolved, but money remained the medium of exchange for modern nations. This is true also for India, where 85% of the workers are paid in cash.
These are all small units, agriculturists, farmers who sort of work, farmhand laborers, then all kinds of people who, work in cottage industries, maybe 2 people, 3 people, 5 people, working in some small unit. You see them in the markets, you see them in rural areas, weaving and all kinds of trades are there. So all these people are so small that they actually don't have bank accounts. They use cash for their transactions.
With 263 million workers, agriculture is one of the largest employment-generating sectors in India. Unskilled workers come from different parts of the country to work on farms during the harvest season. After the harvest, migrant workers take back their cash savings to support their families back home. These wages are used for day-to-day expenditure.
इस पैसे से यही करते हैं खर्चा पानी, बच्चों की फीस चली जाती है और अपने राशन पानी ले आते, सब्जी उब्जी ले आते हैं.
For many of the unskilled workers, formal financial institutions are difficult to access. To counter this, workers sometimes find convenient ways to manage their earnings.
जैसे मालिक से हमने जैसे हमें 2000 रुपए की जरूरत है, तो हमारे दिहाड़ी हमारे 10 है 20 है, इससे कोई मतलब नहीं है. हम अपने जितने हमारी जरूरत होगी उतनी ही गुंजाइश से हम अपने पैसे लेते हैं.
Cash-intensive sectors like agriculture depend on a regular supply of physical currency. The labour force must be paid on time to ensure the smooth running of operations. Machines and resources also depend heavily on cash.
हाँ भैया दुखिया आ जाओ, ये लो करो बाजार जा.
Payments are made fortnightly or weekly, depending on the landowner. For a single workday, a typical farm worker earns between 200 to 300 rupees.
हाँ जी कार्तिक.
These payments are normally made in cash.
ये लो भैया. कितनी 3 पर्ची गई हैं तुम्हारी? आज का तो काम खत्म हो गया, बाजार बजूर करो, ठीक है. The receiver prefers to take it in cash. He feels more confident, and the one who's giving, he also feels that it is saving on time.
Since money is crucial for an economy, currency management is an important task. Countries keep making changes to their currency. For this, the notes or coins in circulation are pulled out and replaced with new notes or coins with better security features or design. Sometimes the old currency may be replaced with new currency entirely. The government has to issue an order stripping the currency or specific notes off their legal tender. They can be exchanged with new currency. This process is called demonetization. India has previously witnessed this twice in the 20th century. 11th January 1946. During the twilight of the British Raj, high-denomination notes were demonetized to tackle tax evasion and black money. 16th January 1978. A demonetization ordinance was issued in the country again, this time to counter black money. Notes of 1,000 rupees, 5,000 rupees and 10,000 rupees were thus demonetized. Usually, there is a short time frame within which citizens can exchange demonetized notes. In some cases, countries have taken drastic measures as a response to inflation or a failing economy.
Demonetization has been announced in cases where they were terminal cases. They were on the operating table. Distress. Countries like Russia, where the ruble just went berserk. So you demonetize. That's what demonetization means. Other countries have had it from time to time. But you do it when you are in deep distress, when inflation is out of control.
At 8 p.m. on the 8th November 2016, this announcement caught the population of India by surprise.
8 November 2016.
In a televised address to the nation, the Prime Minister of India invalidated all notes of 500 rupees and 1,000 rupees.
और 1,000 रुपए के करेंसी नोट लीगल टेंडर नहीं रहेंगे.
The government explained this as a move to fight currency counterfeiting, terrorism funding and the hoarding of black money. Black money is identified as money which is acquired illegally or money on which tax has not been paid.
I have taken a payment from you which I don't want to declare either for tax purposes or it's patently illegal. So that's still in cash and I haven't converted it. It's cash which has mediated an illegal activity or non-tax paid activity which should have paid taxes and is still with the perpetrator. That's black cash.
Has demonetization had the expected impact on India's monetary systems? Anil Bokil, who claims to have initially suggested this idea, believed that it would bring radical changes.
ये ओबेसिटी थी. हमें तो लगता है कि ये बहुत जरूरी कदम था. पब्लिक डोमेन में पैसा आ गया, बैंकिंग में आ गया. अभी सबके डिजिटल ट्रेल मिलने लगेंगे. वो करप्शन को कंट्रोल करेंगे, वो टेररिज्म को कंट्रोल करेंगे और दूसरी तरफ इंटरेस्ट रेट नीचे आएंगे. जैसे जैसे कैपिटल की कॉस्ट नीचे आती जाएगी, लोगों की क्रय शक्ति बढ़ेगी, परचेसिंग पावर बढ़ेगी, तो समाज में मार्केट में डिमांड आएगी, सप्लाई चेन घूमने लगेगी, एम्प्लॉयमेंट के अवसर खुलने लगेंगे, बड़ी मात्रा में रोजगार की निर्मित होगी.
Keeping in view the challenges of a developing nation, others held a contrary view.
Well, if you look at the numbers don't look good. One, connectivity has to be improved. And two, banking has to be improved. 80% of women don't have a bank account in India. This is the reality.
Opinions were divided on the expected impact of demonetization. India was looking at a major upheaval in the months to come. After demonetization, the cash that people were holding became useless. There were long lines at banks and ATMs to deposit old notes and access the new currency. But the new 2,000 and 500 rupee notes were not available immediately. Since all 500 and 1,000 rupee notes had to be replaced, the currency printing presses were working overtime. However, a note-for-note replacement would take a few months. To tackle this shortage, a weekly withdrawal limit of 20,000 rupees was set on all bank accounts. One of the first fallouts of this cash crunch was that salaries given in cash could not be paid on time. Innovative solutions came to the rescue in some cases. Assam, a state which is home to around 800 tea estates. 700,000 workers are employed here. The minimum daily wage for each worker is 169 rupees. The wages are paid in cash. Most workers here do not have bank accounts. Women form 50% of Assam's total tea plantation workforce, with tea plucking being their main task. Most of these tea gardens have been in operation since colonial times. The workers are paid weekly or fortnightly. This has been a rule since they began operations. Right after demonetization, the estates had run out of cash. But since the salaries had to be paid, the Assam government ordered all the estates to open bank accounts for their workers. But this process was not without hurdles.
Initially, opening account was not that problematic because Assam Gramin Vikas Bank was very, very cooperative, and they have taken it as a challenge, and they were very, very proactive. But problem was infrastructure and network connection.
Once the weekly salaries started accumulating in the bank accounts, the estate workers faced a different problem.
আমরা যদি এখন কালাইন আমাদের টাউনে আছে ব্যাংক, আমরা যদি ওথা যাই তো আমাদের একটা রুজি গেল।
To solve this, the bank tried to go to the customer. Micro ATM machines brought banking solutions to the tea gardens. These machines work on the basis of a person's Aadhaar information. Aadhaar is an individual identification number issued by the Government of India to establish a unique identity for every person. For this, biometric and demographic data of citizens is collected and stored in a centralized database.
We determine uniqueness through the biometrics with all 10 fingerprints and 2 iris and also the photograph. We also take demographic information like basic information like name, age, gender and residence wherever the person is residing, the address. So with this information we generate a unique ID number, that is a 12-digit random number, and that becomes a unique identity.
The government relied on this system to tide over the cash shortage brought by demonetization. Once the Aadhaar information was verified, workers were able to withdraw money from their accounts at their doorstep.
আৰু এতিয়ালৈ আমি 25খন গাৰ্ডেনত আমাৰ অসম গ্ৰামীণ বিকাশ বেংক RRBয়ে শতকৰা 50 ভাগতকৈ অধিক পেমেন্ট সুচাৰুৰূপে কৰি আছে।
But these solutions came at a price. Micro ATM transportation, security personnel and machine maintenance costs made it an overall cumbersome initiative. The tea estates had found a solution, but the challenges of social acceptance, supporting infrastructure and digital literacy remained. Cash usage is deeply rooted in India's culture. There is a great level of trust attached to cash.
A 100 rupee note is a receipt which says that I have given society goods and services worth 100 rupees and I should be able to claim 100 rupees worth of goods and services from anybody else in this economy.
Prior to demonetization, 98% of transactions by volume were done in cash. Most Indians preferred to use cash to buy and sell goods and services.
Well, there is no alternative to cash in 50% of India's villages and 50% of the population at least. There is no alternative to cash. You need cash to get along. You might be a rich guy, but you still need cash. Because there are some transactions you can't do with a card. Even the President of the United States carries some cash with him.
Currency in India has a rich history. Ancient India was one of the earliest issuers of coins in the world. Coins in ancient India were made of metal and did not have a distinct shape. Sher Shah Suri, briefly the Emperor of North India, introduced the rupiah in mid-16th century. The original rupiah was a coin made of silver. In colonial times, rupee coins began to exhibit different styles. The rupee issued in India after 1840 bore the portrait of the reigning British monarch. Paper money was formally introduced after the passing of the Indian Paper Currency Act of 1861. It was in 1935 that the Reserve Bank of India came into being. Its role was to manage the money flow in the economy. Independent India continued using the rupee as its official currency. The Reserve Bank of India advises the government to decide on the various denominations and design of the currency. After demonetization, the RBI started releasing new notes, but there was a challenge. The size of the newly designed notes was smaller. This required a recalibration of all ATM machines. Over 200,000 ATM machines across the country had to be recalibrated as soon as possible. Each machine had to undergo 3 stages of recalibration. First, the cassette that holds the cash had to be adjusted for the new currency, which was smaller in size. Next, the software in the machine had to be reprogrammed to acknowledge the 2,000 rupee note and remove the 1,000 rupee note option. Finally, the ATM had to be activated online from the central database. But there was still time before currency would be available. November end 2016, the government began to encourage digital alternatives to cash. At this stage, no one knew whether India could transition to a digital economy. Was the country ready to let go of cash?
It's a very interesting situation where the cash usage per unit GDP is relatively high, but the proclivity of the population of going to an alternative means is also pretty high. The move can take place more rapidly than what many experts might think. This happened, for example, in the spread of the mobile phone. Once the right kind of conditions were created, the use and spread exploded in ways in which nobody had anticipated. Only thing is that the use of mobile phone depends on the appropriate infrastructure. In this case, it also depends on trust.
Small-scale enterprises were greatly affected by the hit that the cash economy took after demonetization. A range of such businesses stared at the same problem: how to resume their day-to-day operations. They had the option of going digital, but could that bridge the gap? Conventional money is physical in form, while digital money is virtual. Conventional money has more cultural acceptance in India, while digital money is not yet a norm. Using cash does not come with the cost of a transaction fee, unlike digital money. Conventional money has the assurance of anonymity, while digital money can be traced easily.
Currency takes confidentiality to its logical conclusion. It is actually completely anonymous. And it is that anonymity which gives currency its confidentiality. Because when I hand you a currency note, it doesn't have my name written on it.
Up Up until demonetization, Indians trusted cash, and cash had dominated their spending habits. India became the first country where cab company Uber allowed a cash payment option. Industry estimates indicated that 70% of all online shoppers in India picked cash on delivery as the preferred payment option. So, was a cashless system going to be practical for the country?
Things have improved, but if you look at these basic numbers, for uninterrupted internet, broadband subscribers, if you look at that number, it's 370 million out of 1.3 billion. Just 370 million. And if you look at broadband penetration, for every 1,000 people, only 18 have uninterrupted access to broadband. So with these numbers, it's difficult.
November 2016. The month came to a challenging end. It was hard to tell at this stage whether India could overcome the challenges of remonetization. India is an immensely cash-intensive country. 60 to 80% of the country's consumption market depends on cash. This includes transport, real estate, and restaurants. December 2016. The country was reeling from the impact of demonetization. Consumers were spending much less than before. Large parts of the economy ground to a halt. There was a liquidity crunch with no medium of exchange to replace the speed and guarantee of payment that comes with cash. Sales slowed down for apparel and textile businesses. Analysts noted that for India's consumer goods sector, sales dropped by 40 to 70%.
If you look at some of the transitional data during demonetization, one of the areas which got hit the most was FMCG and retail. In a lot of cases, business loss from the data we've tracked was close to about 20 to 25%. In some cases more, in some cases less. 25% hit on business is a large number.
Demonetization coincided with the Indian marriage season. Expenditure on wedding-related items like clothes, jewelry, decorations, and catering went down. December 2016. The Indian economy witnessed a postponement of demand among consumers. Buyers and sellers were transacting much less than they were before November 8, 2016. There was a disruption in India's distribution channels and consumer habits since there was less cash available. Retailers were stocking fewer goods. As a consequence, wholesalers were left with unsold inventory. In this kind of a scenario, Indian businesses were facing a massive challenge.
Historically, business in India has not been done on principles of efficiency and effectiveness. They have been done on things like SOPs. Which state should I put up a factory in? How should I sell in this place? How do I deal with that middleman? How does this wholesale network help me versus the other? Which are not actually optimizing conversations, but more managing and jugaad kind of conversations.
Just like manufacturers, customers and small vendors also had to choose alternate strategies to overcome the lack of liquid cash. Jaipur, the pink city of India, is the starting point for many tourists who come to visit Rajasthan. They are an important source of livelihood for the city. Like other large sectors in the country, travel and tourism also took a hit in the days that followed the demonetization announcement. Subhash, who has been a cab driver for 25 years, was also affected.
नोटबंदी से पहले जो भी कस्टमर आते थे, जहां भी घूमना हो, वो सारा पेमेंट कैश में होता था। नोटबंदी के बाद में कैश पेमेंट आना बंद हो गया, तो नेचुरल है कि हमारे भी काम पे इफेक्ट पड़ेगा ही पड़ेगा। तो मैंने ये देखा कि जो दुकानदार है वो स्वाइप मशीन रखते हैं, तो क्यों ना स्वाइप मशीन हम रखना चालू करें।
Subhash decided to invest in a mobile point-of-sale machine that would make it possible to take cashless payments. If a customer did not have cash, Subhash had an option for them. Initially, he was not sure whether the investment would pay off, but his customers have responded well to the idea.
कस्टमर जब पेमेंट देने की बारी आती है तो पूछते हैं भैया पेमेंट कैसे दोगे, तो हम लोग सजेस्ट करते हैं सर जैसा आप चाहें, आप कैश में देना चाहें कैश दे दीजिए, और कार्ड वगैरह से पेमेंट करना चाहें कार्ड से कर दीजिए, मेरे पास ये सुविधा भी है।
There was a rising demand among vendors for the installation of point-of-sale machines that accept card payments. Point-of-sale terminals are available for rental or purchase. Each has a different merchant discount rate depending on the volume of transactions. Caught in the wave of digitization, vendors were curious about the benefits and disadvantages of using this new technology.
People will slowly start seeing the advantage of transacting on the digital mode, because there is, obviously first the freedom, that is you can transact at any point of the day or night, you don't have to have the physical cash with you.
Traditional merchants in older parts of the city have also shown an interest in installing point-of-sale machines. Even customers are warming up to the idea of using debit and credit cards regularly.
छोटी मोटी चीजें तो उससे ले ही सकते हैं कैश से, और वैसे थोड़ी मोटी वगैरह चीजें कार्ड से हमें बहुत अच्छी सुविधा लगी।
The penetration of digital payment technologies among India's population had widened.
So India is in the midst of a huge revolution, a technology revolution, and India will therefore in the next 3 to 4 years make digital transaction very easy, very simple.
For this to become a reality, the infrastructure has to be able to support the jump in digital transactions.
Digital payment infrastructure in the country needs a revamp. For a country of India's size, there are only 1.5 million POS terminals. A country having 1/5 of the population, say Brazil, has got about 5 million terminals. So we need to increase our acceptance terminal if we would like digital payment to be a success.
But here was an opportunity for e-wallet companies to offer alternate digital payment solutions. E-wallets have been around in India for over a decade, but demonetization gave their usage a boost. An e-wallet is an electronic wallet stored on a mobile phone. A first-time user first downloads the application for an e-wallet. The next step is user registration and submission of identification details. Money is added to an e-wallet through net banking or debit and credit cards. The wallet can be used to make and receive payments among users registered with the same application. However, e-wallets can hold only a certain amount of money and are dependent on electronic devices and broadband services that carry the data. E-wallet gateways often get jammed due to increased volume of data flow, resulting in delays or failure in payments.
The reason for this is that every transaction it has to sort of go from one bank to another through hops. And the more the hops, the more is the chance of failure. You know, it's like a call drop in your mobile. The longer it takes for you to finish that call, the greater is the chance of the call dropping. And if it drops, there is a failure of transaction.
There are transaction costs for each sale or transfer of money in an e-wallet. The added costs may make goods and services more expensive. There are also hidden costs over the market cost of the product or service that consumers aren't always aware of. However, some experts have pointed out that even running a cash economy comes at a cost.
The cost to cash comes in several ways. One is just the printing of the note. Second is reprinting of the note when it actually becomes unusable. Third is to upgrade the security aspect. So you have to actually upgrade the technology, you have to make it in the form that it becomes difficult for people to reproduce it.
In India, the infrastructure for cash usage was in place. This was not the case for digital systems.
So large part of the economy is used to dealing with cash because of habits, because of the way the financial literacy is, because of the way the economy is organized, and that will change very slowly.
How is cash printed in India, and how does it reach the users? Currency notes are printed across the country in 4 printing presses. One in Dewas, Madhya Pradesh, and one in Nashik, Maharashtra. The other 2 are in Mysuru in Karnataka and Salboni in West Bengal. From here, the currency is transported through railway wagons, trucks, and even helicopters to the vaults of the RBI and currency chests of banks. The next step is to transfer currency to bank branches and ATM machines across the country. ATM management companies in the country were under immense pressure to constantly replenish cash in the machines in the months following the demonetization drive. This is a detailed task that is carried out with precision. After a rigorous round of security checks, authorized personnel from the company load the cash box in a designated van. The cash van is then dispatched from the company's vault. A team at the command center monitors their journey to the ATM location through live GPS tracking. In the city of Mumbai, at any given point, the command team is tracking 150 cash vans. At the ATM, 2 personnel enter carrying the cash box. They proceed to replenish the stack of notes and then load the trays back into the ATM carefully. The machine is then ready for public use. Normally, each team has to replenish 15 to 18 ATM machines per route across the city.
In the initial days of demonetization, we did see a huge number of trips happening. There were only 100 denomination cash which were supposed to be dispensed from an ATM. So the moment we started loading 100 denomination cash, the cash used to get exhausted in 2 or 3 hours. So we had multiple trips of the crew going and replenishing the ATM.
December end 2016. The year ended with remonetization still in progress. Historically, both large industries and small businesses have seen buyers and sellers transacting largely in cash. For low-value transactions in particular, cash is the only option. The recovery of markets in India post-demonetization has been uneven. Remonetizing the 6th largest economy in the world hasn't been an easy task. The transition to digital was tougher for the bazaars of the unorganized sector, where going cashless was an unusual prospect. Many informal markets witnessed a decrease in revenue after demonetization. For this weekly cattle market in Uttarakhand, sales did not pick up even in January 2017.
लोग कह रहे हैं कि हमारे पास पैसे नहीं है, तो इस कारण बाजार बंद कर दिया गया कुछ हफ्ते, और अब स्टार्टिंग हुई है। कारोबार अपनी जगह आज भी नहीं आ पाया है, आज भी बहुत परेशान हैं लोग। अगर आप किसी से भैंस खरीद रहे हैं, उसे बदले में आप चेक दो, तो मना कर देता है चेक लेने के लिए, कैश मांगते हैं लोग।
To address the cause of financial inclusion, the government encouraged the use of a mobile application, UPI, Unified Payment Interface. Through UPI, customers can transfer funds across different banks instantly. This is done with the use of a virtual address, such as your name at bankname.com. This service is available 24/7 and reduces dependency on a physical bank. The Government of India also introduced Bheem, a mobile wallet app powered by UPI. The app can be used to send and receive money. A scan and pay option through a QR code is also available. But these solutions may not work in all of India due to lack of internet access, electricity and low literacy rates. Going digital also brought to the forefront the issue of privacy and confidentiality. Digital payments leave a trail of disclosure, giving access to the private lives of people.
Banks have information on my transactions, but under banking law they cannot give that information to anybody except under a court order. Right? The problem with the digital platforms that exist today is that the data itself is a part of the business plan. They make money on the data, which means that it has the lowest level of confidentiality, because I as a person have no idea who is getting data on my transactions.
We just are not ready in India for this kind of digitization, because cybersecurity and privacy is going to be a very big problem for 1.2 billion people.
The cashless initiative encouraged Aadhaar-based banking, but the possibility of data misuse and identity theft through personal biometric data was a source of apprehension.
We use very strong encryption at each level, right from the point where the biometric is captured, in the field, until the data reaches us. It is fully encrypted with a very, very high degree of encryption. And then within our data center also, the data remains encrypted most of the time, except that fraction of millisecond when the data is required to be processed.
In traditional supply chains in India, manufacturers and fast-moving consumer goods companies deal with wholesalers mostly in check payments. Wholesalers and retailers transact in checks and cash. Retailers and consumers transact mainly in cash and plastic money. Cash is thus central to this chain. The process of going digital in a short time makes the system vulnerable to cyber threats at each point down the supply chain. This was a concern shared by companies that went digital.
First thing they can do is, of course, protect their digital environment. So, having the right systems and processes and walls in place to protect that outsiders can't penetrate their systems. I think the second thing they need to do is have an incident response preparedness. So, understand that what would happen if they were a victim of an incident.
In the weeks that followed November 2016, the currency in circulation came down. This picked up in January 2017. However, a complete remonetization was expected to take a few more months. The slackened pace of remonetization had the government encouraging citizens to reduce their dependency on cash and go digital.
Once digitization happens, the government will be able to reduce its fiscal deficit, it will have greater outlay for education, health, nutrition, it will be able to do data analytics, it will be able to provide long-term loans at very low interest rates to enable good infrastructure to be created in India.
An economy such as India's was expected to be in a state of struggle for a long time if cash levels were to be marginalized.
We should be less cash economy as far as possible, but even that less cash economy would require a lot of preparation in terms of point of sale machines, regularity of electricity, regularity of the calls going through, etc. Then only can we do that. So again, as I said, we require a lot of preparation before we can actually move towards even a less cash economy.
The initial spurt in digital transactions saw a reversal in February 2017. There was a 21.3% decline in the total volume of electronic transactions from January to February 2017. Was the population reverting to cash again?
People are getting back to cash as cash becomes more available, right? And that's where education comes on, because if you want to make a paradigm shift in mentality from cash to digital, then that needs to be education driven, not through demonetization driven.
Demonetization highlighted cashless payment solutions and tried to initiate a drastic change in India's economic culture. But remonetization brought cash back into the system. The days to come will show what the people truly prefer, cash or digital.